This is a first impression about Arteza Watercolour Pads. This is a watercolor pad with 32 sheets of watercolor paper, not watercolor. Here you can see 300 grams and the size, so it's about A4 size, little bit larger. And I've been doing a little bit of testing already. Look here. But I need to do a lot more testing, so let's continue this. For some reason I chose spring flowers, and I'm using Sennelier Professional Watercolor. I'm not sure if I can turn this painting in something nice, because I was just, you know, just scribbling about and then this came out. But I'm just going to test how the paper works, and you know, as you can see, there is a little bit of a pattern in the paper. And what I already feel here, I think you can see it. Oh, sorry. It looks like the surface of the paper is changing after I put on a couple of layers. But let's just try to add a little bit more. I am going to add warm sepia, and I'm using a Pentel water brush. I seem to have a preference for mixing on the paper, so I'm not using my palettes that much for mixing. I take the color, the paint right from the I don't remember the name. These we call them napjes in Dutch. Well, I'm sure I will remember in a couple of minutes. Pens, half pens I have, yes. So I seem to like, this is phthalo blue, to mix on the paper, and that means that that paper has to be sturdy. And the surface of this paper is changing a little bit while using this technique. Let's pick up a touch of phthalo green light. And there's something else about this paper. Oh goodness, I must show you what I'm doing, of course, I'm sorry. Now the problem, it can be a problem, or maybe it isn't for you. It looks at first like this paper is not, I like paper that seems to absorb the paint a little bit. And the first layers look like they are really, they stay on the surface of this paper. And I think many artists will like that. But for me, sometimes I prefer the paper to absorb a little bit. Now I'm going for Opera Rose, and this is not a Sennelier one, but this is Winsor & Newton, I believe. So as I am adding more layers on the paper, the fibers in the paper seem to loosen a little bit. To me that is not a problem, but I can imagine that for some artists it is. Let's pick a little bit more. This is a paper, as far as I know, made of real paper. You also have watercolor. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just messing around a little bit. Anyway, there is a paper that is very popular with watercolor artists. That is not exactly paper, but that is made of cotton. And my first encounter with cotton paper was not the best, although you might think that the cotton paper that I bought would give me the best experience imaginable, but it didn't happen. I bought the French Arche, and English-speaking people call it Arches paper, very famous, 100% cotton. I was eager to try it. I did. I tried it again and again and again, and last week I picked it up again, tried it again. It's not working for me. The way that the surface of this Arche paper is they do something to the surface of the paper so to make it work better with watercolor. And in this particular Arche paper, something happened that just isn't working for me. So I went searching for a different type of cotton paper, because the best results that I had so far was on actual paper by the company of Hanemühle. They had a series Hanemühle Quattro, beautiful paper, beautiful surface, worked perfectly for me. So for a long time my favorite watercolor surface was paper, just like this Arteza, although this Arteza has a different surface. So yeah, let's pick up a touch of Payne's Grey. I'm just continuing to layer because that is what I love most. So I want to see what this paper does when you add layer after layer after layer. So then I went looking for a cotton paper that would have a similar surface as the Hanemühle Quattro, and I found one, and it's a cheap one, relatively cheap one. But that cotton feels like paper to me, and I'll make a video about that one some other time. I must say, the more layers I put on this paper, the better I like it. And I think that has everything to do with the fact that the fibers loosen up a little bit. I like that. And the Hanemühle Quattro that I have also has this fibery, soft look and touch to it. And the cotton paper that I have used right now has the same thing. And I see it happening here. So when you start out on this Arteza paper, it looks different, but now I can see it yeah, it's slowly doing what I wanted, what works for me. You know, it's so personal. There are so many different types of watercolor paper, but I like this. It's winter time and I am painting a spring. I'm painting spring flowers. Okay. Well, in 3 months' time, they will be in the garden. Dioxazine purple. This is. Look at that. The paper takes the paint quite well. Look at that. And here you can see the fibers loosening, and I think I have loose fibers here. My camera is not very stable today. Look, I can move them around. That is something that does not happen to my Hanemühle paper. But, you know, this is a completely different price. These Arteza pads, they are quite cheap. Yeah, this is not what I would like. But maybe there are too many layers here, I don't know. Let's put that purple in the background, adding a little bit extra water. Let's just see what happens. Now the question is, can I recommend this paper? And that depends on how you want to use it. I would not use this paper for my more serious artwork because of the fibers coming off. But if you are a beginner, just studying, doing a study before you do an actual painting, then yes, this might work for you. And for painters who do not layer, painters who mix their colors on the palette and then put it on the paper, this might work just fine. But because I'm messing around on the paper so much, I need a very sturdy paper type. Let's add a touch of dark blue, Prussian blue. I think this paper would also do great for kids. Lemon yellow, here I have. I'm a great ambassador, well, that is a very strong word, but I promote the idea that children have a right to use proper, decent, quality art stuff. And here in the Netherlands, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but in the Netherlands, young children tend to have really bad pencils with very little pigment. The only thing you can do is scratch the paper with very bad paper quality, bad watercolor. There's good stuff for kids, but what I see is that most kids at first get the very cheap bad stuff. And I've learned that if you want to give a child some paint or pencils, then give it good quality stuff, because otherwise these kids will have a bad experience. They get pencils they can't do anything with, so then they will say, hey, pencils are not nice, I don't know what to do with them. Let's pick a little bit of warm sepia here. And the same goes for paper. When you do watercolor, whether you are a kid or an adult, a professional one, the number one rule in watercolor is get good paper. Because if you use watercolor on bad paper, no matter how good your paints are, it's just not going to work. And maybe this pad is just great for people who are just starting out with watercolor. You have 32 sheets here. And I will use it for another project, so you can see what you can actually do with it. This is just a quick sketch. Let's add some forest green. I'm just trying different colors. Here I have not that many layers here, and you can see how the paint reacts when there are not that many layers. It's great. I can envision this paper very well working for cartoons or for Arteza has these watercolor brush pens, I believe. They call them real brush pens. I think this paper will do great with that. I haven't tried the brush pens, but I have this feeling that would be just a great combination. So here on the lower part of this quick sketch, let's just try a couple of colors so you can see what the first layer looks like. Here I go with phthalo green light. Look at that. And this works just fine. And let's go for a forest green. All the colors that I'm using are Sennelier, except for the opera rose. The opera rose that I used is Winsor & Newton. I believe. Yes, I just checked it. it is Winsor & Newton. So here I go for a Prussian blue. Let's just layer. You see how the paint finds its own way once the surface is a little bit wet, a little bit damp. And add a touch of lemon yellow here, so you can see how things mix. So, as you can see, I think with these couple of layers the paper is not damaged, but when you add more than just a couple of layers, then there is the risk that you damage the paper, just like I did in the larger sketch. Here I have a color called yellow ochre, light yellow ochre. Let's see what that one is doing. You know, this is just decent paper. So if you are going for just a couple of layers, mixing your colors on a palette, then this paper will do fine for you. Yeah. So this is my first impression on Arteza watercolor paper, and I'm planning on doing a little project on this paper. But I must find some time to do that. So I will be back with this paper and have a more in-depth encounter with it, so I can really find out what it is capable of. But so far but this is a student grade paper, I think, and well, I hope you enjoyed this short video. And if you want to buy this paper, there is a link in the description of this video. There are several links because there are two web shops, the Arteza USA shop and the Arteza web shop for Europe. So if you want to try this paper, you can go and click one of the links in the descriptions of this video, and I will get a little bit of money by Arteza if you buy this paper. So but I will be back with a more in-depth review of this paper later on. So bye bye.